Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a close look at Ondas Holdings, Inc. That's ONDS. They operate right at this really interesting intersection of private wireless and autonomous systems.
Yeah, and they're targeting some massive markets, defense, critical infrastructure. We're really digging into their strategy today, which is, frankly, extremely aggressive.
They want to dominate this space.
Yeah.
And management isn't shy about it. They talk about a 10-year boom that they're aiming to capitalize on.
Right. And the core idea here, the thing you need to grasp, is that this isn't just about slightly better drones or networks. It's a fundamental transformation. Security, infrastructure, it's all being reshaped by autonomous tech that's, well, finally ready for prime time.
And they're very clear. This isn't some temporary hype bubble. They see it as the start of a really long, multi-year investment cycle. A necessary one.
Unavoidable, even.
So, for you listening, we're going to break down what's driving this growth, look at the key people they brought in the leadership strategy, and dive into the actual tech, their system of systems.
And ultimately try to figure out if this massive capital raise they've done is the key to winning the consolidation game, or if it's just a very, very high-stakes bet.
Let's start there then, this 10-year boom. What's really behind that prediction?
Well, Ondas points to two main forces, things you just can't ignore. First, the technology itself is just ready. It's been accelerated, often through harsh lessons learned in actual conflicts.
They call conflicts a crucible for technology advancement. That's a pretty powerful image.
It really is. It means the whole the AI, the software-defined systems, isn't theoretical anymore. It's not lab stuff. It's mature, it's robust, it's actually deployable.
So we're past the prototype stage.
Way past. Think about getting a system certified for 247 operation, maybe in contested airspace. That kind of reliability, it just takes years to build and prove out. You don't get that overnight.
Okay, so the tech is mature. What's the second driver?
Money and mandate. Huge policy support, particularly from governments. They're essentially forcing the market towards specific kinds of solutions, ones that meet really stringent national security needs.
Like the FCC restricting foreign components.
Exactly that. Or the FAA pushing forward regulations to allow these systems to operate at scale. Governments are putting their weight behind this transformation, and that unlocks massive funding.
Right, the regulatory side. That always seems to be the big hurdle for things like drones, doesn't it? Getting them safely integrated.
It's historically been the major bottleneck, absolutely. Drones themselves aren't new, but operating them safely, seamlessly within national airspace, that's the challenge.
And Ondas seems to think that's changing.
They do. The feeling is that regulatory maturation is what really unlocks the market potential. They expect new rules, maybe within the next 12 months or so, that will allow for beyond visual line of sight BVLOS operations.
BVLOS, that's the key phrase, isn't it?
It is. It means the operator doesn't need to physically see the drone anymore. That changes everything. It's the difference between, say, inspecting a small area versus monitoring hundreds of miles of pipeline or rail track automatically.
From a local tool to a national infrastructure asset.
Precisely. And it needs to be authorized at scale. That's why Ondas getting FAA-type certification for their Optimus system is such a big deal. It's a strategic move, positioning them ahead of the curve for when those BVLOS rules really open up.
And you mentioned government mandates. The Made in America aspect seems huge here, too. NDAA compliance.
Oh, it's critical. The National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, it sets clear requirements. And what that really signals is a massive need to build out a secure domestic supply chain for these autonomous systems.
So it's not just a preference, it's a requirement for defense contracts.
Absolutely non-negotiable if you want to sell to the Department of War or major critical infrastructure operators in the U.S. It inherently favors companies that can guarantee their supply chain is secure, free from components from potentially adversarial nations. It creates a huge moat.
And implies the current U.S. supply chain isn't big enough.
Not even close. It needs rapid expansion. Same for field support infrastructure. That's a direct consequence of these policies.
Which leads neatly into this problem Ondas is trying to solve. Market fragmentation.
Yeah, the drone market, the autonomous systems market generally, it's just messy. Hundreds of small companies, many venture-backed, often focused on niche applications.
And that's a problem when you're trying to sell to, say, the Pentagon.
A huge problem.
Yeah.
Imagine you're the DoD. You need thousands of systems, maybe aerial, ground, command systems, and they all need to work together. Interoperability is key.
Right.
You simply cannot manage the logistics, the compliance, the long-term service contracts, the field support. If you're dealing with 500 different small vendors, It's untenable.
So Ondas is betting that consolidation has to happen.
It's inevitable, according to their view. They argue only a few really well-capitalized firms will have the scale, the regulatory approvals, the standardized supply chain needed to serve these massive global customers effectively.
And those current bottlenecks, the small supply chain, the lack of field support, they see those as solvable.
Solvable by the winners. The companies that lead the consolidation will have the capital and the scale to build out that necessary infrastructure through acquisitions and investment. It's part of the consolidation play itself.
It sounds like they see the market shifting gears from R&D to industrialization.
That's a perfect way to put it. And industrialization requires industrial scale capital management operations. That's why they've turned to the public markets for funding. They need that war chest.
Okay, let's talk about the leadership driving this. Eric Brock, the CEO, how does he fit into this picture?
Well, Brook frames his own style as disciplined, high integrity, very focused on communication and transparency. You actually see him quite active on platforms like X, providing updates.
Which is a bit unusual for a defense-focused CEO, maybe.
It is, yeah. It seems clearly aimed at keeping investors informed and confident, especially during this phase of really high investment and cash burn.
And his background isn't typical tech founder stuff either.
Not at all. That's maybe his biggest strategic asset. He's a trained accountant. He calls accounting the language of business. And he was an investor for a long time, a founding partner at Ondas Capital.
So he brings a financial and investment lens.
Exactly. He looks at the autonomous systems market through the mental models he developed, watching other industries transform. He specifically compares it to past infrastructure buildouts.
Like telecom. How does that comparison work?
Think back to the late 90s, early 2000s telecom boom. You had thousands of small operators, different equipment, fragmented networks.
Right.
Then the internet really took off and you needed massive integrated infrastructure. Fiber laid coast to coast, standard protocols, huge capital investment to connect everything. Brock sees autonomy the same way.
Lots of small players now.
But the need is for standardized, secure, nationwide systems like BVLOS drone operations, certified platforms, and the massive infrastructure build-out for manufacturing and support. That standardization and scaling requires enormous capital.
And just like in telecom, that drives consolidation.
Precisely. Only a few heavily capitalized players survived that telecom consolidation to become the giants we know today. Ondas is positioning itself to be one of those survivors, one of those giants in the autonomous systems space.
Which explains the need for serious money, that aggressive funding strategy.
Yeah, they've deliberately moved away from VC funding towards using public market growth capital. They need money they can deploy quickly for acquisitions and scaling.
And they've certainly raised it. The numbers are pretty eye-watering.
By any measure, they are extremely well capitalized. They had some big offerings recently, a $425 million one, a $200 million stock offering. The balance sheet shows north of $840 million.
Wow.
And management's been clear, no plans to raise more capital anytime soon. That cash is explicitly called their huge competitive advantage.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate. Raising that much, especially through stock offerings, dilutes existing shareholders, doesn't it? It's risk.
Oh, it's absolutely the definition of high risk, high reward. Management's argument, though, is you can't win this kind of consolidation war buying up potentially dozens of smaller tech companies and integrating them globally with slow VC funding rounds.
They need speed and decisiveness.
Exactly. This capital is meant to let them move fast, outcompete rivals, snap up key acquisition targets, and really transform themselves from just a tech developer into a scaled defense prime contractor. It sends a powerful signal.
And a specific vehicle for deploying some of this cash is Ondas Capital, launched late 2025.
Right, Ondas Capital. It's aiming to put about $150 million to work scaling up mature unmanned systems. And the person leading it brings some very, very specific expertise, James Acuna.
Tell us about Acuna.
His background is really something. Former senior CIA operations officer, decades of international security work, and he also worked with DARPA, the Defense Research Agency.
It's a deep operational and tech development insight.
Deep. And his specific mission with Ondas Capital is to bridge the infamous Valley of Death for defense tech.
Yes, the Valley of Death, where promising tech often fails to make it from prototype to actual large-scale deployment.
That's the one. It's a huge failure point. Getting from a cool prototype to something standardized, manufacturable at scale, supportable in the field, that's incredibly hard. Acuna's job is to find companies with tech that's already proven itself, often in combat.
They're specifically looking at Ukrainian or Ukrainian-inspired tech.
Yes, because that conflict has become this unprecedented real-world test bed. Drone tech is being developed, tested, iterated, hardened in actual combat incredibly fast.
Validation by fire, literally.
You got it. It cuts through years of theoretical testing. So Akuna's role isn't just to give these companies money, it's to provide a practical roadmap to be successful,
Meaning,
helping them industrialize, scale up manufacturing, navigate the complex regulatory landscape, get that crucial NDA compliance needed for U.S. and Western markets. And crucially, he says he wants to avoid the fraud and hype that's unfortunately common in this space by focusing only on tech with proven frontline performance.
that focus on real-world experience seems reflected in their broader advisory board, too. Some serious defense heavyweights there.
Absolutely. You've got Brigadier General Yaniv Rodam, former head of military R&D for Israel's Ministry of Defense. Dr. Irit Aydin, formerly at RFAL, also advised SoftBank Vision Fund. Brigadier General Patrick Houston, retired U.S. Army. It's a high-level global defense network they're building.
Designed for partnerships with allied nations, clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to the products themselves. Ondas, Autonomous Systems, or OAS. This is the main growth engine now.
It is. And the core concept is this system of systems. They're not just selling individual drones or robots. They're offering integrated solutions.
Combining air, ground, command systems.
Exactly. Integrating everything globally. That's how they position themselves as a next-generation defense prime contractor.
Yeah.
It's about the whole solution, not just the hardware.
That makes sense if you're targeting massive contracts. So let's break down the pieces. The core aerial platform seems to be the Optimus system.
Right. Optimus is their fully autonomous drone in a box. Think automated ISR intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and perimeter security.
And the key validation point here is that FAA type certification.
That's huge. Getting type certification for the Optimus 1EX UAV is like getting a license for mass deployment. It's especially critical for enabling those complex BVLOS operations we talked about. It basically tells the FAA and customers that this system meets rigorous safety and reliability standards.
And that certification is translating into business.
It appears so. They landed a $14.3 million military order, their biggest Optimus order so far. And maybe even more telling is its deployment with the Dubai police for 247 citywide coverage.
247 coverage. What does that look like in practice?
Think about it. The drone launches itself from its box, flies its mission, lands, recharges, uploads its data, all without a human needing to physically touch it. It turns drone surveillance from something you actively do into an automated, persistent sensor network.
Like automated security guards in the sky.
Pretty much. It provides continuous intelligence, which is invaluable for protecting critical infrastructure, not just in Dubai, but potentially globally.
Okay, beyond surveillance, there's the counter-drone market. The Iron Drone Raider.
Yeah, this addresses a massive and growing need: how to stop hostile drones. The Raider is an autonomous interceptor.
And it uses a hard kill method, but not missiles or bullets.
Correct. It uses a net payload. It physically intercepts the intruder drone with a net. This is different from soft kill methods like jamming or spoofing, which rely on electronic warfare and can sometimes be defeated.
A net seems quite low-tech, but maybe very effective. And safer.
That's the key design principle: low collateral impact. If you have a hostile drone over a city, a base, a stadium, you need to take it down without raining debris or shrapnel everywhere. The net captures it, brings it down more safely.
It makes sense.
Plus, the Raider system is reusable, which makes it much more cost-effective for providing continuous protection compared to one-shot missile interceptors.
And is getting tracked.
Seems like it. They had a $2.7 million defense order announced in August 2025, and they've mentioned new programs starting with a NATO member country. So yes, there's definite interest.
Then there's the really fast-moving area, FPV strike drones. The WASP drone via Rift Dynamics.
Right, the WASP. This is aimed squarely at what the U.S. Department of War is calling for: mass, affordable, attritable systems.
Attritable meaning disposable.
Essentially, yes. Expendable. The idea is that modern warfare might require large numbers of relatively inexpensive, intelligent systems that you can afford to lose, rather than relying solely on a few multi-million-dollar platforms. The WASP, especially when integrated with a NAMA warhead, is designed as a ready-to-go strike solution.
And the production numbers they're talking about are kind of mind-boggling.
They are. An initial order for 500 units, okay, but the goal, working with their manufacturing partner Kitron, is reportedly 20,000 units per month.
20,000 a month. That's industrial scale.
It absolutely underscores that shift we talked about. This isn't just tech development. It's building a real manufacturing engine to meet potentially massive wartime demand for these expendable systems.
So that covers the main aerial platforms.
Hmm.
But system of systems implies more, right? Ground integration.
Definitely. That's where the acquisition of Motion comes in. That brought unmanned ground vehicles, UGVs, or ground robots, into the Ondas portfolio.
Okay, so adding robots on the ground. What else did Apero bring?
Something quite unique, actually. Specialized communication tech. Specifically, NDA Compliant, US-made fiber optic microspools.
Fiber optic spools on a robot. How does that work?
The robot, or even a soldier, carries a spool of ultra-thin fiber optic cable. As it moves, the cable pays out behind it, maintaining a physical data connection.
Why is that better than just using radio or Wi-Fi?
Because it's jam-proof and secure against electronic warfare. In a heavily contested environment, enemy forces are constantly trying to jam or spoof radio frequency communications. It's a huge vulnerability.
But they can't jam a physical wire.
Exactly. The fiber optic connection completely bypasses RF countermeasures. It guarantees secure, reliable communication and data transfer even when the airwaves are saturated with jamming. It's a clever way to ensure connectivity in really tough spots.
And data is obviously crucial. They've also invested in AI for processing that data.
Safe Pro Group.
Right. SafePro Group brings AI-powered computer vision, specifically their SPOTD-NOD technology. This is about edge processing.
Edge processing meaning doing the analysis right there on the drone or robot.
Precisely. Instead of sending huge amounts of raw video back to a command center for analysis, which takes bandwidth and time, and might not even be possible if communications are jammed, the AI processes the imagery locally, right on the edge device.
What kind of processing?
Identifying threats. For example, the CCOD node can be trained to autonomously identify things like landmines or unexploded ordnance from the drone's video feed almost instantaneously. In a combat zone, that speed can be life-saving.
And then tying it all together at the enterprise level, there's the Palantir partnership. Yeah, that's a big piece for validating their next-gen defense prime ambition. They're integrating Palantir's Foundry system to manage their own global operations as they scale.
But also for joint customer offerings.
That's the really powerful part. The Ondas platform's Optimus, Raider, the UGVs act as the sensors, collecting vast amounts of data. That data can then flow directly into Palantir's analytical engines. Palantir excels at fusing data from multiple sources, finding patterns, generating predictive insights.
So Ondas provides the eyes and ears. Palantir provides the brain.
That's a good way to think about it. It turns Ondas's hardware into intelligent data feeds for Palantir's sophisticated analysis, creating a really compelling end-to-end solution for large defense and intelligence customers.
Okay, it's easy to get focused on OAS. It's clearly where the explosive growth is. But Ondas started as a different company, right? Ondas Networks.
That's right. It's important to remember they're technically a dual-engine company. Ondas Networks is the original business focused on private wireless technology.
The FullMax platform.
Yeah, FullMax SDR. It's based on an IEEE standard 802.16t designed specifically for mission-critical IoT, or MCIoT. Think highly secure, private, wide-area broadband for essential services.
And the main target market for that has always been railroads, North American freight rail.
That's been the primary focus. The big Class A railroads in North America, they operate on these really old legacy wireless networks that are seriously constrained in terms of capacity.
And they need an upgrade for modern operations.
Desperately. Things like positive train control, collecting data from thousands of sensors on locomotives and rail cars, running sophisticated logistics software. Their current networks just can't handle the data load. They need a modern, robust, private network.
And Ondas Networks believes their tech is the answer. They use licensed, low-frequency spectrum.
That's their key technical advantage. Low-frequency spectrum travels much further than, say, typical cellular frequencies. That means you need fewer towers to cover the vast distances of North American rail lines, much of which runs through rural areas with poor or no commercial cell coverage.
So it's ideal for building a private, reliable network across a continent.
Exactly. The physics are on their side. It's critical for railroads because these networks control the actual movement of trains carrying essential goods. Reliability is paramount. The tech solution seems really well suited.
But there's always a but, isn't there? This segment is seen more as a call option by investors now. Why the delay?
It boils down to the nature of the rail industry itself. It's incredibly regulated and notoriously conservative when it comes to adopting new technology. Change happens very slowly.
Slower than management hoped, it sounds like.
Definitely. Management has expressed disappointment with the adoption pace. Part of the complexity is that the Class I railroads operate almost like a cartel. For true interoperability across the continent, they all need to agree on technical standards.
One railroad can't just go it alone.
Not really. They have to coordinate standards, fund extensive trials, agree on deployment plans, and then undertake this massive multi-year infrastructure build-out across thousands of miles. It's a huge, slow-moving process.
So the tech might be ready, the need might be clear, but the industry dynamics mean it's just slow.
Glacial compared to the defense sector's urgency right now. So yeah, Ondas Networks is this valuable latent asset, a huge potential market waiting to unlock, potentially worth billions down the road. But it's not driving revenue or cash flow today.
So investors see it as having future potential, but the focus is OAS for now.
Precisely. It's a call option, huge upside if and when the railroads finally move, but uncertain timing. It does offer a potential long-term, stable infrastructure revenue stream to balance the more volatile defense side eventually.
Let's look at the financials reflecting that OAS growth then. The numbers are starting to show that acceleration.
They really are. Q2 2025 showed record quarterly revenue, $6.3 million. But the really striking number is the year-over-year growth, 555%. 555%. That's a lot. It's huge. And importantly, it's not just revenue volume. Gross margin is also improving, hitting 53% in that quarter. That suggests they're successfully selling higher-value integrated systems like the Iron Drone, which are more profitable than some earlier contracts might have been.
And they have a decent backlog, too.
Yeah, the backlog was reported at $28.7 million around mid-2025. That gives some visibility. And management seems confident they forecast at least $25 million in revenue for the full year 2025, and they've talked about potentially doubling that again in 2026.
Driven almost entirely by OAS.
That seems to be the expectation, yes.
Okay, impressive growth. But now we need to balance the picture. This consolidation strategy, this rapid scaling, it costs a lot of money.
An immense amount. And while they have that huge $840 million war chest right now, we have to look at the underlying financial structure and the historical performance. This is still fundamentally a high-risk venture.
The history shows significant losses, right?
Stark losses. Since they started, they've racked up significant operating losses. The margins are deeply negative. Net margin around minus 235%, operating margin around minus 227%. They are intentionally burning cash at a high rate to grab market share, make acquisitions, and build scale.
Which leads to that really concerning language you sometimes see in financial filings.
The going concern warning, yes. Their filings explicitly state there is substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern unless they secure further funding or achieve profitability.
Wait a minute. How does that square with having $840 million in cash? That seems contradictory.
It highlights the tension perfectly. The cash is there now after the recent raises, but the going concern language reflects the historical losses, the ongoing high cash burn rate required for their strategy, and the structural reality that they operate with a working capital deficit.
So even with the cash, the underlying business hasn't historically generated enough to sustain itself.
Correct. The warning acknowledges that risk. They must execute flawlessly on their growth plan, turn that cash into profitable revenue streams, and win the consolidation battle before that cash runs out. It's standard risk disclosure language, but it hammers home the high-wire act they're performing. The cash is ammunition, but they need to win the war relatively quickly.
What other risks should listeners be aware of? Customer concentration.
That's another one. While they're targeting big institutions, historically, a lot of their revenue has come from just a few customers. For 2024, for example, the sources show 3 customers made up 52%, 26%, and 10% of total revenue.
So losing even one of those could have a big impact.
A huge impact on short-term results. And that risk is layered on top of the regulatory risks we mentioned. Getting initial FAA-type certification is one thing. Scaling BVLOS operations nationwide requires ongoing approvals and navigating a complex, potentially shifting regulatory landscape. That's not entirely within their control.
It sounds like they built a powerful engine, maybe even a rocket ship, but they're flying it through a meteor shower, relying on a very large fuel tank to get them through.
That's not a bad analogy, actually. High speed, high potential, but significant external risks and a reliance on that capital cushion.
Okay, let's try to pull this together. How would you summarize Ondas Holdings right now?
I'd say Ondas is a company executing a really bold, high-stakes strategy. They're currently very well capitalized, and they're using that capital aggressively to acquire technology, integrate it into a system of systems, and try to lead what they see as the inevitable consolidation of the autonomous systems market, particularly in defense and critical infrastructure.
They're leveraging key validated platforms like Optimus and Iron Drone, integrating ground capabilities from Apero Motion, and aiming for that next-generation defense prime status.
Exactly. And the whole strategy is underpinned by powerful market drivers, technological maturity, and strong policy mandates, especially in the U.S.
Right, we talked a lot about the Made in America push and NDAA compliance being critical for the U.S. market. But Ondas also has an international footprint now, right? Through acquisitions like Aerobotics, they have offices in Israel, Dubai.
Yes, they clearly have global ambitions aiming to serve key U.S. allies as well.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe something provocative for you, the listener, to mull over. We've seen how critical local, secure production NDAA compliance is for winning in the U.S. defense market.
It's become almost table stakes.
So if that's the reality in the U.S., driven by national security concerns, how much pressure will Ondas face to replicate that localization, setting up secure supply chains, local manufacturing partnerships, meeting specific national compliance rules in Europe, in the Middle East, in other allied nations they want to sell to?
That's a fascinating question. To truly become a global defense prime, do they need multiple, regionally localized versions of their supply chain and manufacturing footprint?
Does achieving that global scale ultimately depend less on how good the drone technology is and more on their ability to navigate this incredibly complex web of geopolitical manufacturing requirements and national security mandates in every major market they enter?
The complexity of becoming a truly global player in today's security environment, it might be as much about geopolitical industrial strategy as it is about advanced technology.
Something to definitely think about. That's all the time we have for this deep dive into Ondas Holdings. Thanks for joining us.